Well, I've been invited today to speak to you briefly about Ignatian spirituality in general, Ignatian spirituality in particular. Now, you might say at this point, whoa, wait a minute. I know what spirituality is. I know that spirituality describes the contours of my relationship with the transcendent, whether I spell that with a small t or a large t. I know that spirituality describes how I relate to the transcendent. And I know that Ignatian spirituality describes how one relates to the transcendent as God. And that the heart of Ignatian spirituality is the conviction that God is in all things, that every experience is open to being an encounter with God if we but reflect on it and open ourselves to it. I know all that. Do I need to hear about it right now? After all, this is the first day of medical school orientation. There's a lot going on. My living situation is not settled. I'm not quite sure about transportation. We're in the middle of a pandemic that's raging around us. There's a lot of uncertainty about how classes are actually going to unfold this year. Do I need to hear you tell me more about Ignatian spirituality? Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I remember my own medical school orientation. I remember sitting in meeting after meeting after meeting, listening to speaker after speaker after speaker, and I really wasn't absorbing much of it. To this day, I still don't know how to get a new ID if I should forget or lose my original one. The reason I really didn't absorb much of my orientation was because my mind was filled with this question. You might say I was in the gravitational pull of a particular question. Maybe it's the question. And it tugged at me throughout my orientation and beyond. And the question is simply, what's going to happen to me now? What's going to happen to me here? Will I ever have time to read another novel? Will I ever have time to go to a film? Will I have time to call my friends? Will I ever see my family again? Will I ever see my dog or my cat? What's going to happen to me here? Will I achieve academically in the way that I've grown accustomed? What is going to happen to me here? And then powerful experiences began to unfold fairly quickly. I remember opening the door to the anatomy lab for the first time and being slammed by that powerful smell of formaldehyde. And there were cadavers everywhere, and I was really lightheaded and not sure at all about this. And then as I began my third year internal medicine clerkship, my M3 rotation, one of my first patients presented me with this knot about the size of a tennis ball in the pit of his stomach. I remember palpating it and wondering, what is that? That doesn't seem right. A few days later, his biopsy report came back. Adenocarcinoma of pancreas. And I suddenly realized, and it struck me with force, that this man I was visiting every day on rounds, this man into whose eyes I was staring, wouldn't be alive in 8 or 10 or 12 weeks. On my very next rotation in surgery, the cardiothoracic surgeon, on the day I scrubbed into bypass surgery, asked me in the middle of the procedure, have you ever held a beating human heart in your hand? And I had no idea what he was talking about. It sounded poetic. I didn't know holding a human heart in your hand as it was beating was actually a thing. But he took my right hand and he guided it gently through the open pericardial sac to a position underneath the heart, So that momentarily I was actually holding this patient's beating heart in the middle of bypass surgery. I was holding it in my hand. And that floored me. That experience floored me. Make no mistake, powerful experiences are coming your way. They're already on your doorstep. They're already on your doorstep. Just a few days ago, the director of our internal medicine residency program shared with us how profoundly affected his internal medicine residents have been by taking care of patients with coronavirus disease day after day after day. Make no mistake, in medicine, powerful experiences come our way. And whether we want them to or not, they will shape us. And they can shape us in a healthy way or not. And the difference between the two is an awareness of spirituality and the reflective practices that have emerged from it. And this brings me back to what I think is a significant insight. And that is medicine, the practice of medicine, medical education is not simply learning about medicine. It's not simply gathering clinical knowledge and honing clinical skills and practicing clinical judgment. You're not in medical school merely to learn medicine. Certainly that is a task. But the other part of that task is learning about yourself as you learn about medicine. And so in medical school, you're tasked with learning medicine and learning about yourself as you learn medicine. In order to become your best self, yourself most fully alive, in order to let the powerful experiences that are coming your way shape you so that you become more fully who you are, more fully alive. And this, of course, brings me back to spirituality. Spirituality as a description of the lines of our relationship with the transcendent. And Ignatian spirituality, a description of the lines of how we relate to our God, seeking to experience God in all things. This is a way of allowing our experiences to speak to us in a healthy way. And there are a number of critical reflective practices that have grown out of Ignatian spirituality that I want to commend to you. Do I know that they'll be an absolute perfect fit for you? I don't. But I want to suggest that you at least try them on and see. And if the reflective practices of Ignatian spirituality don't speak to you, please find reflective practices that do. Because we need, all of us, a way of learning about ourselves as we practice medicine. It's the difference between growing in the midst of this practice or white knuckling it through and hoping that the powerful experiences don't do damage to us. You're about to embark on an amazing adventure. You will learn about the practice of medicine. I pray that at the same time, you're learning about yourself and to be your best self. Be assured of my prayers with you as this amazing adventure unfolds. Take care and God bless.